Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me again today. So, to start off, our first topic is all about Nike. Now, obviously, many of us are familiar with the company that is Nike, that sells sports apparel. Primarily, they're known for their shoe wear, sports, and casual wear. And for our first topic, it pertains to Nike used to sell their products online using the platform which is Amazon. But they suddenly stopped, or not suddenly, but they ended their partnership, so to speak, in terms of selling their shoes through Amazon. So how did that happen? How is it possible? Let's take a closer look. So this was way back in 2019. Nike suddenly stopped selling its goods wholesale to Amazon. And this is part of Nike's focus on elevating consumer experiences through a more direct personal relationship. And they have made a decision to complete their experience pilot with Amazon retail. Now, obviously, on Nike side, partnering seems logical, and it's another stepping stone of you know uh, getting a bigger market share, being able to reach a wider reach with their customers. Obviously, Amazon sells a lot of products apart from sporting apparels like Nike, but they are able to expedite the process and make it easy for their customers to access their products. Now, why the sudden shift in terms of stopping their relationship? Well, actually, to begin with, for years, Nike had refused to sell their products directly through Amazon. Now, for whatever reason, well, it's simply because it they would feel or fear of being undermined its spread. Reasonable, as you may notice, Amazon is not just selling just one particular product, but sells a variety of product on a particular category and so forth. So obviously, Nike executives are worried in terms of whether they should sell their products in that platform. Well, in this case, the Nike officials were supposedly disappointed with the deal that Amazon did eliminate counterfeit and give the brand more control over gray market goods, which is, I think, for any legit company that is selling their product on e-commerce, the concern here is the counterfeit economy or counterfeit aspect in the gray area. So obviously, other companies will try to copy, and obviously, this is not what Nike wants. And the question is, what will Amazon do here? And so far, they have done, I won't say nothing, but little to no effect. And given that Amazon has a big power in terms of who can sell in the market, or in this case in their platform, and yet they are not able to carve out or eliminate the counterfeit products in their platform. And apart from that, as a result, Nike never brought its full catalog to Amazon, which I think is the right move, and instead pulled the plug on both parties, which is, I think, if you're Nike looking forward, is this a long-term relationship? Maybe this is just an experiment, so to see if what will come about with this experimentation. And based on what happened here, for several years, it benefited both parties at a certain point. Obviously, it generated more revenues for Nike as well as Amazon, but the problem that stems from the gray market area did not address that issue altogether. So it made sense for Nike to just complete the relationship and move on. So what's the repercussion here? Did it have any negative effect towards Nike as well as Amazon? Now, shoppers did not stop looking for Nike on Amazon. So obviously, the company itself is not selling their products, but Amazon's third-party marketplace continues to uh, provide the services. In this case, I think Athlete's Food, other third-party companies that resells their products. There's always still a demand for Nike products. Now, obviously, uh, the company in this case, does it did it negatively affect Amazon? Not necessarily. Obviously, if customers are not able to find the products that they're looking for, like in this case, they can't find Nike, they could just always look for a substitute or a different brand, whether it's Adidas or maybe Reebok or Asics or a different product altogether. And like Nike is likely okay with being presented poorly on Amazon despite pulling out their products here. Now they might not be the top search products anymore, but this would enhance the customer's experience of Nike so that when they go to the website or download their app, so they could feel enjoy the full experience of what the Nike experience should be. And even though they pulled out, Nike's online sales continue to go up as much as 83%, especially with the pandemic that's going on. So they were able to capitalize on that. And obviously, with the accelerated consumer shift towards digital, which means that, Nike did, a tremendous job of, shifting or investing in the digital aspect of their business, and they eventually benefited from it, in the end. Now, obviously, can other companies replicate what Nike is doing here? Not necessarily. Obviously, Nike is a big multinational company, multi-billion company at that, and they are considered the exception rather than the rule. So obviously, it's using or looking for other channels to enhance their growth for their revenue. And obviously, at the end of the day, Amazon would still sell products regardless Nike was there or not. And obviously, it does not need to accept the trade-off that comes with selling on Amazon at the expense of maximizing revenue. Now, obviously, Nike realized that it does not need to fix its issue with Amazon. Rather than complain with Amazon, you're not dealing with a counterfeit. They simply pulled out their products, sell their products online. They created a different channel, which is at least they have total control in it. Right? Build a different channel without those issues. So Nike is focusing on what it can control and ignoring what it cannot, which I think is the best decision that Nike can make. And in the end, they're still doing well for both platforms, whether you're Amazon or your Nike. Next we have here is, I'm sure you've been hearing TikTok for several weeks now, several months regarding the problems that TikTok is. But one may wonder how is TikTok was became this juggernaut that it is, that they are one of the most popular apps in the world right now. What makes them so popular? How did ByteDance, the company or the parent company that owns TikTok, able to you know take advantage and capture this immense popularity and revenue and so forth? Well, with the help of a pre-install hack that they call it. Let's see here. So the pre-install hack that they say is a way to optimize ByteDance budget. So what they did here is what's kind of interesting when I was reading this article. So in order to properly lay down the most effective way that the company could hack the new users, meaning uh, the mobile users that are going to buy new phones currently and in the future, and could spur the growth of a company. So they call this the pre-install hack. Okay. So what happened here? So the ultimate gray A market, which is ByteDance, said that it used by cutting deals with different phone distributors. So meaning from the manufacturing side, before it reaches the consumer, they made a deal with those distributors so that they can automatically pre-install certain apps. In this case, obviously their app TikTok to be pre-installed in the phone. Now, why are they doing that? Here's a very compelling reason now. One thing they mentioned that they had an initial budget of just only zero point 0.4 yuan for every zero point 0.6 cents per install. Now, obviously, they've been growing in an exponential rate, and right now they've already invested 12 yuan for every $1.68 per install. So quite a pre-install strategy, so to speak. The technique worked very efficiently in terms of allowing users with new device, meaning if you just simply bought a new phone, would proceed to try out. Obviously, if it's included in your phone, you're checking out what's inside the phone. If you see apps, you may try it. And when you're exploring it, obviously you're very unlikely to simply just disable or even at worst uninstall the app itself. So the one thing they're betting on is once it's pre-installed, the app will make its way to the potential user, obviously the one who bought the phone. And when it's in the phone, very unlikely that you would not use it. You may not like it, but you may not necessarily uninstall, as I mentioned earlier. And once users get accustomed with the app, then they would start using it even more and even promoting it. And to the point that obviously that's just one side of the point of view of the customer. Obviously, on the side of TikTok, they need to promote it, market it, which is what they're doing right now. So the circle of marketing then spreads with the users themselves promoting the pre-installed app. So, which makes sense, it sounds so simple, but it's a very effective way of how to market a product. In this case, an app, rather than advertise heavily online and then encourage them to download, which is another step for consumers. Why not just install it in the first place? Now, obviously, whether having this, I don't know, under the table deal with your distributors is not considered ethical or not is another debate altogether. And as I mentioned, once it's being promoted, other people will also recommend as a means of using communication here, which is what TikTok is, right? So I'm sure with this type of information, other companies, who wants to develop an app, can start using this strategy as well. Now, whether that's considered illegal or not, it's up to the governments, legislatures to consider what is allowed and not allowed here. Next we have here is, speaking of sports. So the NBA season has recently finished, and there have been reports that there's going to be a short turnaround. So meaning, hopefully by end of this year, actually there was a debate whether late this year or by December the season would start again. And then there were reports that players were preferring, to extend the season or the break, and it would start somewhere mid January. And is there an impact of delaying the start of the season? Well, that's what the NBA or commissioners Silver is stating here. So let's take a closer look. So obviously, players are seeking to delay the start of the season, while NBA teams are looking to restart it as early as possible. In this case, before Christmas, they want to start the season by mid December, around 20 plus 21st, which coincide with before Christmas Day, which typically they have a double header, multiple games that is played at the same day, and it's being watched by millions and millions of people, not just in the United States but as well worldwide. And if players would insist of pushing, delaying the start of the season, which in turn would some would significantly hamper their revenue. Obviously, with the pandemic that's going on, it's very unlikely that home teams can generate a significant revenue wherein there's no attendance in the arena. Now, maybe they could copy how the MLB or even the NFL is instituting. It's not totally no fans. There are some fans allowed to watch, but at a limited capacity. Now, I don't know how they did that. Did they screen? They specifically select ticket season holders on who can watch the games. who would they prioritize, and so forth. So at the end of the day, if money matters to players as well as teams, obviously the NBA is, imploring players to reconsider starting if, even for this season alone, that there will be a short turnaround time frame. And with the December start, the advantage of this is they would be able to finish before the Olympics, which is around, when was it? Supposed to be around August, right? So the season would end by July, by finals, yeah. And they were going to shorten the season from 82 to 72 games so that they could start and finish the playoffs earlier than expected, which I think would benefit all players. And thinking that players have a 50-50 revenue split with the team owners, and I don't think they want to risk, reducing their revenue as it is already. And as mentioned, that they fear, or the league is fearing, that they could lose, not just 500 million, but as much as $1 billion if they were to delay the season. And not just that, if they were to delay, let's say the finals would coincide with the Olympics, you just imagine which would people prefer to watch, the Olympics or the NBA finals? So, obviously NBA would have to compete with another big event, which they want to avoid altogether. Again, at the end of the day, it's about money, it's about revenue. If if it would affect their revenue, especially high ratings is important to continue having, TV sponsors and so forth. I think the best way here is to, start later this year. And based on the latest update, I think they're going in the same lines. So it's just a matter of clarifying and confirming whether which particular day in December will they start, so that, once the date has been set, they can consider already, pre-camps, as well as trades for players, as well as, the draft, which will be held, I think, sometime later this month. Okay, so looking forward to seeing the restart of a new season in the NBA. Anyway, so next year is talking about travel. Now, obviously, with the pandemic that's going on, people are having a difficult time. You know, even if they wanted to travel outside of their own country, where can you go? Is it safe to go out? For leisure, or is it just for business purposes? Now, two such countries are creating a sort of bubble, like they're calling it. It's between our neighboring country, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So they're creating a bubble where indeed this would expedite the process of, obviously, based on what we've discussed before, that, in order to travel to another country, you have to go to a rigorous process of, testing, quarantine, and, all the documents that you need to be able to travel to different uh, countries or cities in this case. And they're going to expedite this so that they would encourage, jumpstart the economy, so to speak. Obviously, that's their main purpose here. So let's take a closer look. There you go. So as I mentioned earlier, so Hong Kong and Singapore is planning an announcement, early this October, that they would allow leisure travel to continue without any need for quarantines. So what they have to do, or for tourists have to do, they just have to simply conduct a test before they depart, and maybe another test when they arrive, just to confirm that there is no virus present. So it's not just Hong Kong, between Singapore, who is in talks. So other countries are in talks. There are 10 other countries, namely you have Thailand, Japan, and other neighboring countries. So we have to wait and see. I think also other cities in China are in talks as well. So obviously the travel bubble will create a more expedite process. Now, whether this is the best time to travel, it's hard to debate the merits, but obviously, you have to open up the economies again rather than limit the growth. As to, do we wait until next year? Obviously, many businesses have been hampered by this. First and foremost is the travel, hotels, the airlines. Obviously, it would be tremendous for them that they could go back to some semblance of normal operations here. obviously, the target is to launch this as soon as possible. Whether they could do it this month or earlier, I think they have to consider several factors as well. So the two cities that they mentioned that they were supposed to have this implemented by mid-October, it's already now November. It's getting closer to December. If they want to take advantage of the Christmas holiday, hopefully before that happens. So we have to wait and see. So what they're being asked here is tourists would take a test before the departure. So obviously it has to be reputable, that is recognized by different countries. So it would be standardized. And then on the other side, when you reach, let's say you go to Hong Kong, you may be required also to take another test upon arrival. And I think that would be the norm standard. Now, obviously, taking a test would take, at the very least a day to get the results. So at least, if you're going to be quarantined in a sense in a hotel, maybe you stay there, then if it turns positive, then at least the countries could take the necessary precautions and steps when that happens. Now, are you looking forward to traveling again this soon, or would you defer and wait until next year? So obviously, business is, depending on many businesses that depend on tourists, is always looking forward for when is it possible to see more travelers around the world. And obviously, Singapore, as unilaterally open its borders for tourism, obviously dependent on tourism, not just for the financial institutions that is based in Singapore. Hong Kong is also in talks with other countries as mentioned earlier, and there are countries that are in more advanced discussion than others. So Thailand and Japan is already in advanced stages, so they may discuss it sometime later this month or even earlier. And at the same time, obviously they're working with other countries, in particular as mentioned, mainland authorities in China if they are able to travel there. Obviously, Hong Kong is already part of China, so it makes sense that if you're going to open the borders for Hong Kong, it makes sense to open the rest of the borders in mainland China here. Now, is it safe? Is it the best decision for their respective countries? Who's to say? We can only hope for the best. Avoid for the worst case scenario here. Anyway, so speaking of retailers, so if you're familiar for one of the biggest retailers in the world is Walmart, right? So in this article, they're ending their contract with a robotics company that does what a human person can do, which is check for inventory stocks in their stores, and why did they stop and shift it back to people rather than use robots. Let's see here. So Walmart is ending the contract with the robotics company with which is they're preferring or going back to human workers. Now they came up with this sole reason as a cost-effective solution to manage their products. Now obviously, with the pandemic that's happening right now, sporadic demands is unpredictable, and you have to stay on top of your demands from your customers so that it's always stocked to the brim in the shelves. Otherwise, obviously, you missed out on different opportunities to generate more revenue as well as sales. Now, the companies is pushing forward with other opportunities, in this case, tech experimentation that would improve the performance of their businesses as well as generate more revenue. So obviously, robots were utilized as a cost-effective way to improve the sales, or in this case, sales floors that help them check if shelves were stocked properly, or if there's ample supply in their inventories. Now, obviously, Walmart has recently cut ties with the company which is Bossa Nova Robotics. So they would be referring, referring, they're going to go back to their human resources, which is who would take care of this, which is a more cost-effective way of saving expenses. Now, what they did here is just an experimentation of sorts to test out it would be a more cost-effective way. Now, obviously, it would be weird if you're in a retail store like Walmart or any retail store that you see robots, moving around in the facility. Obviously, people are used to dealing with people, so if that time would come, hopefully not sooner but later in the near future. And it's still interesting to see here. And obviously, there are advantages of using robots. They don't need to rest. They can continuous work, but at the same time, it can be costly to maintain or invest on such technologies here. And obviously, with the company's performance as not just doubled in the second quarter, they're always looking ways to how to improve their operations in terms of efficiency and so forth. So they're not just looking to restock their shelves. Obviously, they're looking in other aspects as well. So creating a new challenge for the big box retailer. So restocking, say, their products is important if they want to maintain that uh, high generating revenue, making sure that the right inventory is available when the customer needs it, right? And obviously, the sporadic out of stock sales will be a continued problem. And if they can find a solution, whether it's using through robotics or using people, it does not matter as long as it is able to address that. And coming up with a simple and cost-effective way to manage the product, if it works, why go against with it, right? Anyway, so speaking of desserts, so sure many of you are familiar with the brand Dunkin' Donuts. So the parent company Dunkin' Donut is going to be acquired or is acquired already by the company Inspire Brands, which is for some of you who doesn't know, Inspire Brand is before was known as Arby's, which is a fast food chain restaurant. So they acquired Dunkin' Donuts in the sum of $8.76 billion. So Inspire is planning to, that's just planning, but what they're trying to do is acquire more and more fast food chains. In this case, obviously, Dunkin' Donuts more for their sweet and donuts, right? So here, okay. So as mentioned earlier, so Inspire Brand, which was formerly known as Arby's, which also owns Buffalo Wild Wings, as well as Sonic Drive-In, bought the entire company, Dunkin' Donuts, as well as Baskin Robbins chain. The goal here obviously is that, does Dunkin' Donut make sense to be acquired by uh, Inspire Brands or Arby's here? Obviously, with the pandemic, the sales have been boosted with strong demand for curbside pickup, which is, I think it's a good situation. Despite the pandemic that's going on, should companies be afraid on investing or even buying other companies as well? Well, obviously, if you have the resources, financial capability to acquire other companies, then go for it, right? And in this case, they're expanding their portfolio, not just focusing or acquiring other fast food or restaurant chains, but as well as branching out to bakery, which is Basket Robbins, as well as sweets, which is Dunkin' Donuts here. And Dunkin' Donut boasts 12,000, almost 13,000 branches nationwide, not just nationwide, but worldwide, as well as 8,000 Baskin Robbins stores worldwide as well. So meaning, they have a significant footprint in their particular industries as well. So, you know, is it good for Dunkin' Donuts? Obviously it gives them bigger footprint to be able to expand even further, right? As a franchise and so forth. Anyway, so for some updates, now we were talking about Ernst and Young's, how its dealings with the Wirecard scandals, didn't turn out so well. Neglect, should they be penalized? What repercussions should they, should they encounter? Now, if you're Ernst Young, you should be concerned. Now, based on their industry of what they provide, what type of service, now will there be a negative effect on their company as a whole, as how they dealt with the Wirecard fiasco or situation here? Well, you know, surprisingly, Ernst& Young has increased its number of multinational audit clients. So it may sound weird. How come you did a terrible, poor job of auditing a company who technically defrauded their finances, and you let it, you know, slip by, and there's no major repercussions? Well, let's take a look here. According to the article, sorry, according to the article, as mentioned, since 2017, so before the scandal occurred, it has already doubled its market share. Now, competing with the likes of, there are only four major players if you're talking of the auditing giant, which is you have Ernst& and Young's, that's one. You have KPMG, and as well as PricewaterhouseCooper as another company that is the major players in the auditing firm, as well as Deloitte. Forget that one. So they now have clients such as heavyweights Deutsche Bank, Volkswagen, Siemens, Munich Re, as well as Deutsche Telekom. They also have big airline giants Lufthansa, as well as aircraft maker Airbus company. So Ernst& Young in recent years has successfully established itself as the third power among the blue chip German blue chip company, which is KPMG and PricewaterhouseCooper. Now, changing auditor is a daunting, complex task. So, which makes sense. Now, obviously, if you're a multinational company that have different businesses worldwide, whether you're in Europe, in America, or in Asia, you will have to deal with different regulations, requirements, and so forth. So you need a well-experienced company, or in this case, auditing firm, that can deal with that, not just the financial aspect, but as well as the legal aspect. And obviously, it'll take a lot more before one company would think twice and simply say, oops, because of the scandal, I want to change to a different vendor in this case. Do I just shift to KPMG or even Deloitte and so forth? Now, changing auditor is a complex and costly process. I think this is one of the main issues that companies cannot simply just shift to a different auditing firm. And it takes several years, particularly in Germany. However, audit and government experts expect that the fallout from it will limit the ability of Ernst& Young to acquire more clients. Now, obviously, here is the negative effect here. Now, obviously, they've acquired a significant uh, contracts from different companies, but you know, with the fallout that happened here, it would be more difficult for them to entice different companies to use their services versus the others who are not in hot water, so to speak. And will it damage their reputation? Yeah, maybe up to a certain point. We have to wait and see what happens with their current companies. When their contract is up, when their agreement is up, would they stay here, or would they choose another company here? An example here is German lender Commerzbank have said they will drop Ernst& and Young's. Now, their main company, the main clients, Deutsche Bank, which ironically recently switched to Ernst& and Young's after more than 60 years of using KPMG, which is kind of ironic, right? But they will not, change their mind because of the scandal that happened here. Same goes for the Volkswagen chief financial officer, Frank Ritter, told the shareholders that, you know, despite changing from PricewaterhouseCooper for 70 years, then suddenly changing to Ernst& and Young's, whether that's a great decision or not, you know, we have to wait and see how it pans out for Volkswagen here. Same goes here for MTU Aero Engines, which used Ernst& and Young since 2014. So they said they have no plans of changing the company. Same goes for MTU because, as again, in particular, if your business is very technical in this case, it's quite difficult and it'll take considerable expertise for auditors to do their job properly, assuming they do their job properly here, right? And as well as Lufthansa also mentioned that they have no plans of changing their auditors. And you can see the list goes on and on. But obviously, at the end of the day, if you only have four major players here, it's easy for them. If they give it a chance, they could just simply shift to a different one, whether it's Deloitte, KPMG, or even price water here. Next, what do we have here? Yeah. Finally, for our last story here. Now, speaking of fast food, now some of you may be surprised to know which brand or which product was introduced on the year that you were born. And I was surprised what was the product that was introduced on the year that I was born. Not so glamorous, but it is what it is. So let's take a closer look here. What is it? There you go. So your fast food favorites, the year that you were born. Oh, let's scroll down, see what piques our interest. So the article here starts on 1947. Here, so in 1947, the first product that was introduced which was to my surprise, was the original slider sandwich, which is from White Castle. Now, for those who are not familiar, White Castle, do you know the film? Harold and Kumar goes to White Castle. It's a very funny movie that you should check it out. But the main plot of the film was they're craving for that White Castle original sandwich. It's a very small sandwich, so you could eat a lot of sandwiches by the time you finish visiting the fast food chain here. Anyway, so other interesting fast food or products that was introduced. So 1949, wherein French fries was introduced by McDonald's. See what else? Oh yeah, the following year, you have 1950, Dunkin' Donuts was introduced. Donuts was introduced for the first time. So you can just imagine, it's been in the market for all more than 80 years, 70 years, sorry. Then you have 1951, Banana Split was introduced by Dairy Queen. Okay, let's skip a few years. I think in 56, yes. So 1956 have a very big, large hallmark. If you like chicken, so the original recipe by Colonel Sanders, or KFC, for those who are not familiar, was introduced in 1956. Mouth-watering, isn't it? So you could just imagine they've been in the market for 50, almost 60, 70 years. So that's a long, long time. Anyway, so let's continue. So 1956, let's go further. So 1957, so Burger King introduced the first ever Whopper. So you can just imagine some of the more popular items that we're used to have been in the market for a very long time, meaning people really like their fast food products, right? Then 1958, pizza was introduced. Pizza Hut came to the market. Then 2 years later, we have Domino's pepperoni, famous pepperoni pizza. Okay, let's skip a few more years. We have 1970. Skip here. Let's go to the 1970. Okay. Yeah. So here we have 1972. Yeah. So Dunkin' Donut introduced Munchkins. Okay. Very small, a smaller version of their donuts. It's delicious. It's bad for your health if you eat too much of it. Anyway, and then 1974, they introduced the Egg McMuffin from McDonald's. And the year that I was born, 1979, tada! Taco introduced their first ever taco pizza. Not so not so savory, but you know, if it works, why not, right? Or are we to content or complain here? Anyway, so let's skip a few years here. We have the McRibs. I think I saw one. Yeah, here. So 1985, Dairy Queen introduced the Blizzard ice cream. So when you can turn it upside down and it won't spill over. So it's a very cool concept. So it's been in the market for 20, 30, or even 40 years. So it's been successful for that long. Anyway, let's skip the 90s. Let's go to the 90s now. What year was it? Yeah, 95. They had, the stuffed crust pizza. So that's something I'm very particular. I enjoy eating pizzas, and when they introduced this, I've been always ordering with stuffed crust ever since. Now, whether it's sausage in this case they have cheesy. What's your favorite here? Anyway, uh, shout out to those who were born in 1999. You know who you are. KFC introduced the first ever original recipe for their sandwich. Obviously, it's I would say delicious, not so delicious, but it's a good product here. And finally, the last one we have here. So for the year 2000, Starbucks introduced the first ever, and this is their first ever caramel frappuccino, but they first introduced it in a plastic cup here. As you can see here, that they transitioned from a bottle to a plastic cup, which is synonymous when you're ordering frappuccino from Starbucks here. Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, so that's about it. So thank you for joining me again. So don't forget to hit the notification bell icon so you can stay updated with the latest news as well as videos. Always, don't forget to hit the like button. I'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel. Take care.